Hey, what's up, social media world? This is Dr. Cunningham. I decided to pop up just to share my thoughts. I have a story with you guys, and this is something I've been thinking about very recently. I was literally on the highway. I believe it was the 710 in California on my way to Long Beach. And I was just driving smoothly as usual, driving the speed limit, which is a new a new behavior for me because I do have a heavy foot. I like putting the pedal to the metal. At the same time, I was cruising at the appropriate speed limit, and I got to a certain point on 710 when the lane lines started getting really fuzzy. And then they not only started getting blurry, but then there were multiple lane lines because the lane lines looked like over the course of years they had redone and shifted the lanes. So then I got to a certain point on the highway where I couldn't really see any lanes. Cars were driving a lot faster than I was, but I was tentatively driving and kind of a little nervous because I was like, I could be in the middle of like 2 or 3 lanes, like literally at this point. And it made me nervous while driving until I finally got to a point of the highway where I could see the lanes again. And then this experience actually connected to something that I had recently experienced literally just yesterday. Why do I say these lanes are blurry and how nervous I felt? Because I was watching a TED Talk, and this TED Talk was excellent. It was about rest as resilience. And I listened to what the orator was sharing, and she was so eloquent with her words. I was happy to see that it was an African American female presenting from Paris regarding the way to recover when dealing with burnout or some traumatic stress due to work. But then what really boggled my mind was hearing what her profession was. This woman was working for major tech companies as a marketing director. And so essentially, she was responsible for making sure that this tech company that produced a lot of apps was able to, maintain its marketability, its visibility to the public. And then I said, wow, this woman is on a TED Talk. TED Talks are usually seen as people whom are experts within their particular field or that particular topic, and they're able to share them with the public. And it's actually on a platform that is a well-known platform where millions of people view this person. And then after viewing this person, usually it opens doors for that person with consideration of being seen as an expert. And then I said, is our culture very different now than what it once was with consideration of profession? At one point in time in history of our professions, a person could work at a factory or work within a particular position and know that they would maintain that position within that company or work up the ladder within that company for at least 30, 40, 50 years until they retire and they get their watch or their clock or their pen and get the retirement party with the cake and then sent home with their family. And everybody's living happily ever after because they can also live off of their pension. But nowadays, people are branding and rebranding themselves to the point where I'm seeing people who are professionally athletes, entertainers, people whom are even like in my field in psychology, but switching lanes to other professions. And matter of fact, some people are branding themselves in ways where they're in multiple lanes. So I'm not saying this from a place of negativity, but it was just an interesting way to have an epiphany to truly realize the reality of the situation is that people are not in one lane anymore. They're in multiple lanes. But what I'm wondering is how can we also honor and respect those whom have really given their life and their time and their energy in order to perfect their profession? Because the reality is there are people like a football player who spent years, we're talking about 10s, 20, 30 years, literally ever since they were a youth, to prepare to catch a ball, to throw a ball, to take a hit. And that, I'm not trying to diminish what an athlete brings. But then there also are clinicians who have given their time, their energy, and their money, who are still paying off student loans who are within the field know what the information is saying, the current information, the previous information leading up to what's current now. And also, the reality is that the majority of us clinicians, why do so many of us know trauma or do trauma work so well? Because at least 75% of us have dealt with our own traumas. A lot of us who are healers because of our experiences and are in the field because of our experiences. And we would like to provide support. But are we also able to stand or sit at those tables? We are. We know the information. We have the lived experiences. But when we are crossing lanes, are we able to collaboratively work together and not seen as a person who doesn't belong within certain rooms? Or are we all going to be respected for what we bring? And I'm not only allowed in the rooms, but allowed to utilize, given access to share our voice and our perspective in the rooms. Because every person's perspective matters from my perspective. But again, it just is very interesting. That highway situation was like, whoo, driving, blurred lines, forget blurred lines. I'm seeing multiple lines and all of them are blurry and not sure which lane they're supposed to, literally are supposed to drive legally in order to not create an accident. So essentially today, what I'm proposing is this, and I'm asking it in a question form, is how can we work together in order to avoid potential relational accidents, but in order to create harmonious, collaborative work that will lead to a positive impact for our universe? Because I want to honor the fact that so many of us are multi-talented, multi-skilled, multi-gifted. There's space for all of us, y'all. But are we all going to honor each other in each of our places and spaces where we usually are used to seeing people whom are in our known profession? Y'all have a great day.